It was a Thursday night in mid-November. Cold, quiet. The kind of night where the wind rattled the shop windows like it was trying to get in. Lisa sat alone at the front counter of her pizza shop. The ovens were off. The chairs were stacked. The smell of dough and garlic still hung in the air, but the warmth was gone. She stared at the laptop screen glowing in front of her bank account open. Numbers staring back like a bad joke. 74.18. That's all she had left. Not in a drawer. Not in her personal wallet. That was her business account after a full month of making and selling pizzas. After paying vendors, staff, utilities, rent. She rubbed her temples. The fluorescent light above flickered, like even it was tired. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, refreshing the screen, as if that would magically add a zero to the end. Tomorrow was payroll. She needed 400. She had 74. This wasn't new. It had been like this for months, maybe longer. But tonight felt different. There was no upcoming holiday rush to hope for. No big catering order to rescue the week. Just another Friday waiting to collapse under the weight of bills and back orders. For a moment, she thought, what if I just don't show up tomorrow? Just lock the doors, leave the closed sign up, let it all fall apart so she could finally breathe. No more 14-hour days. No more scrubbing sauce off the floor at midnight. No more pretending she was okay when everything inside her felt broken. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't careless. She had poured everything into this place, her savings, her time, her identity. But somehow, every month, the math didn't add up. The harder she worked, the less she seemed to have. And the cruelest part? Everyone thought she was doing fine. Lisa's got her own shop, they'd say. She's living the dream. But this didn't feel like a dream. It felt like drowning slowly, in sauce and receipts. A car passed outside. Headlights lit up the shop for a second, then dark again. She exhaled hard through her nose, shut the laptop, and leaned back in the wooden chair that creaked under her weight not from size, but from stress. And she whispered under her breath, "This can't be it. This can't be how it ends." She didn't know it yet, but she was one decision away from everything changing. Lisa wasn't always this tired. 5 years ago, she was working as a line cook at a local Italian joint, nothing fancy, but steady. Her hands smelled like garlic and flour, and her nights ended late. But she liked it. She liked the rhythm, the recipes, the rush of a Friday night crowd. Customers would tell her, "You should open your own place." And eventually, she started believing it. When her boss retired and the shop went up for lease, she took the leap. She borrowed some money, cashed out her savings, and signed the papers. Lisa's Pizza was born. Small place, 10 tables, handwritten chalkboard menu. She kept it simple, thin crust, homemade sauce, fresh basil. People loved it. Word of mouth spread. Google reviews piled up. She was working more than ever, but it felt worth it. The kind of busy that makes you proud. In the first year, she made just enough to pay her bills, cover rent, and take herself out for a decent dinner once a month. She didn't mind the sacrifice. She told herself, "It's normal. The first few years are supposed to be tight." But then came year 2 and year 3, and things didn't change. Sure, sales grew, more foot traffic, a couple catering gigs, but somehow every single dollar vanished before she could ever call it hers. She started doing her own bookkeeping to save money. Every Sunday night, she'd sit at her kitchen table with a calculator, a shoebox of receipts, and a pounding headache. On paper, she was turning a profit, but the bank account never reflected it. Sometimes, when staff called in sick, she'd work double shifts: prep, cook, clean, mop, serve, close. She skipped lunch to make payroll. She paid vendors late, Not because she wanted tow, but because she didn't have the cash. She'd get quiet when her friends talked about vacations or home renovations. She hadn't had a weekend off in 2 years. She hadn't paid herself a proper salary in 6 months. Instead, she kept telling herself, if I can just grow a little more, I'll catch up. But growth didn't bring relief. It brought more stress, more ingredients to buy, more staff to train, more chairs to fill. Every increase in revenue came with an equal or greater increase in pressure. She tried raising prices. Customers pushed back. She tried cutting hours. That made the rent feel heavier. And worst of all, she began resenting the thing she once loved. She couldn't remember the last time she made a pizza just for fun. It wasn't about food anymore. It was survival. Each month, the numbers told her one thing. You should be doing fine. But her heart, her body, and her bank account told another. And so, on that cold November night, when she sat in the quiet of her shop, staring at the flicker of her final dollars, she wasn't just tired. She was done. Done with pretending. Done with grinding. Done with chasing some invisible promise that one day it would all pay off. But just when she thought she'd reached the end, life whispered something else. A moment was coming. One that wouldn't scream, wouldn't shout, just tap gently and change everything. The next morning, Lisa showed up anyway. No sleep, no solution, just muscle memory. She unlocked the door at 9 a.m., like she always did, turned the sign to open, started prepping dough, one batch at a time, in silence. Her team arrived a little later too, part-timers and one weekend delivery kid. They joked around like usual, none of them knowing that Lisa had exactly 74 to her name and two $400 in payroll due by 5 p.m. She smiled at them, said, "Let's have a good Friday," then ducked into the back to cry quietly into a towel. The orders rolled in. It was a decent lunch rush. A few large pepperonis, 2 pastas, a meatball sub. Nothing major, but busy enough to keep her on her feet. Then, just after 2 p.m., the oven stopped working. No warning, just a click, then silence. Lisa tried restarting the pilot. Nothing. She checked the circuit. Still nothing. She slammed the oven door shut and just stood there. Eyes wide, hands covered in flour, heart sinking through the floor. Of all days. She called a repair guy, 150, just to come look. And when she asked, "Do you do payment plans?" he actually laughed. She hung up without saying goodbye. By 3:30, one staff member asked, "Hey, are paychecks coming today?" Lisa smiled and said, "Just a little delay, should be later this afternoon." Then went to the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet lid, holding her head in her hands. She had no idea what she was going to do. She couldn't call her parents. They were retired. She couldn't ask the staff to wait, rent was due for them too. She couldn't take out another credit card. She was already maxed out. Every option had dried up. And just when she thought the day had already broken her, the final hit came around 4:15. Her landlord walked in. He wasn't rude, just direct. "Lisa, I need to talk to you. You're 2 weeks late again. I like you. I've been patient. But if I don't see a payment by Monday, I'll have to start looking for another tenant." Lisa nodded slowly, said, "I understand." And when he left, she didn't move. She just stood there in the quiet, facing the empty oven, the unbaked dough, the weight of it all. She felt humiliated, embarrassed, ashamed. Not because she wasn't working hard, but because it felt like none of it mattered. No one saw how much she gave. No one understood how much it cost her to hold this whole thing together with duct tape and hope. The staff left by 6. She told them to take the night off, blaming the oven. She stayed behind, locked the doors, dimmed the lights, sat at the front counter. And in the stillness, she pulled out a napkin and began writing a list. Can't pay rent? Can't pay staff? Oven's dead. Behind on taxes. Credit cards maxed. No savings. No way out. She stared at that list like it was her final inventory, like she was logging the last few reasons she should walk away. And for a moment, she thought she would. I'm not built for this. Maybe some people just aren't meant to be business owners. But just as she went to close her notebook, something strange happened. Her eyes landed on the words, "no savings." She blinked at them. Not low savings. Not less than usual. None. And that's when the deeper realization landed. She'd never built a system for profit. Not once. She just hoped each month would leave her something left over. She didn't know it yet. But this single moment, the quiet recognition of a missing piece, was the crack that let light in. Because tomorrow, a book would find her. A simple orange paperback that would turn everything upside down. The next day was Saturday. The shop stayed closed. No working oven, no cash to fix it, no energy to pretend. Lisa slept in until nearly noon, something she hadn't done in years. When she finally got up, the apartment was freezing, the floor cold under her feet, but her mind strangely calm. There was nothing left to scramble for. For the first time, she stopped running and just stood still. She threw on a hoodie and walked to the corner coffee shop. Not for coffee, she couldn't spare the change, but just to be around other people, to not be alone with her thoughts in a silent apartment. As she passed the public library, a small sign taped to the glass door caught her eye. Used book sale. Today only. 1 paperbacks. She paused. Books weren't in the budget, not even cheap ones. But something about the plain sign made her step inside. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the smell of old paper and carpet glue. Maybe it was just warmer than outside. She wandered through the narrow tables with no plan, her fingers brushing worn covers romance novels. Cookbooks from the 80s, old textbooks. Nothing useful. Nothing she needed. Then, in a box marked Business, Finance, she saw it. A bright orange paperback. Bold black letters across the top. Profit first. Transform your business from a cash-eating monster to a money-making machine. By Mike Michalowicz. She picked it up. It felt heavier than it looked. The subtitle made her smirk. A money-making machine? Sure. Maybe if I owned Apple. She almost put it back. But then something inside her whispered dread the first page. And so she did. She leaned against the dusty shelf and read one paragraph, then another, and another. And then this line stopped her cold. Your business should serve you, not the other way around. She read it again. Your business should serve you, not the other way around. Lisa stood there for nearly 5 minutes without turning the page. Because deep down, she knew she had built her life around a business that was quietly devouring her. It wasn't evil. It wasn't broken. But it had no boundaries, no plan for profit, no system. And no matter how hard she worked, she was always last in line to get paid. The idea felt radical. Not because it was complicated, but because it made her wonder, what if I'm not bad at business? What if the way I've been taught to run a business is just wrong? She flipped forward and scanned the chapter titles. Small plates, not buffets. The profit distribution. The 5 foundational accounts. Parkinson's law in business. She didn't know what any of it meant yet. But something about the voice of the book, it felt like it was written for her. Not for investors or Harvard grads or CEOs in glass towers. Just for someone like Lisa. Someone tired. Someone honest. Someone trying their best and getting nowhere. She bought the book for $1.25, tax included. Walked home, heated up leftover soup, sat on the couch with a blanket and a highlighter. She didn't stop reading for 3 hours. And by the time she closed the book that night, the world hadn't changed. But something in her had. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was failing. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she was missing a system and not missing the ability to succeed. She set the book down, stared at her closed laptop, and whispered, "I'm doing this backwards. That ends now." Sunday morning, Lisa woke up with something she hadn't felt in weeks. A plan. Not a vague hope, not a dream. A real, tangible plan written in bold orange ink, underlined in a 1.25 book sitting on her kitchen table. She poured coffee, opened her notebook, and turned back to the chapter titled, "The 5 Foundational Accounts." It was simple enough. Step 1. Open 5 separate bank accounts, each with a specific purpose. 1. Income, where all money comes in. 2. Profit, a small slice set aside first. 3. Owner's pay, to pay herself, finally. 4. Taxes, no more dreading April. 5. Operating expenses, what's left, not what's guessed. Lisa stared at that structure. It felt odd, like splitting a pizza into slices before knowing how many guests were coming. But that was the point, wasn't it? She'd been making pizza for years, serving everyone else while leaving herself the crumbs. No more. That afternoon, she walked into her local credit union. The teller smiled politely as Lisa said, "I'd like to open 5 checking accounts." The teller blinked. "All for one business?" Lisa nodded. "Yes, one business, new system." She walked out an hour later with paperwork, routing numbers, and a feeling she couldn't quite name. Not excitement, not fear. Clarity. The kind that comes when you realize you don't need a miracle, you just need a map. By Tuesday, she had transferred the remaining $74.18 into her income account. It wasn't much, but it was hers. It was accounted for. She went through her old bank statements and backtracked where the money had gone the month before. She saw things she'd never noticed. 700 in last-minute ingredient orders. 190 in online ads that didn't bring in a single customer. 62 in mystery service fees. 400 cash withdrawals she forgot to categorize. It wasn't that she was reckless. She was overwhelmed. But now, every dollar had a name. Every expense had a question. Not, "Can I afford this?" but, "Does this fit inside the box I already created?" The next catering job she landed, $350 for a corporate lunch, went straight into the income account. And she did her first allocation. 17.5 to profit, 105 to owner's pay, 52.5 to taxes, 175 to operating expenses. She actually smiled as she wrote down the numbers. Not because they were big, but because they were hers. She paid herself $105 and bought groceries without guilt. Then she moved 17.5 into her profit account and didn't touch it. It was the first time she ever saw money in an account labeled "Do Not Use." And it felt empowering. The oven repair took another week, but she negotiated a payment plan using only what was inside the operating expenses account. No stress, no panic, just a boundary that made the decision for her. Each Friday, she sat down with her new ritual. Check balances, allocate income, pay herself first, celebrate small wins. Within 1 month, she had 92 in her profit account. Not much to the world, but to Lisa, it was proof that something was working, that she didn't need to sell more, grow faster, or chase shiny marketing hacks. She just needed a system that protected her. The biggest shift wasn't in her bank account, it was in her mindset. I'm not just a worker in my business. I'm the owner. I deserve to be paid like one. For the first time in years, she believed that sentence. And little by little, that belief started showing up in how she talked to vendors, how she priced her menu, how she said no to low-margin deals. Because now, she wasn't just running a pizza shop. She was running a company. And it finally served her back. 3 months passed. The oven worked. The rent was current. The staff got paid on time every time. Lisa still worked hard, but now her hustle had structure. And that structure was saving her. Every Friday, like clockwork, she sat at her counter with coffee and her notebook. It wasn't just bookkeeping, it was a ritual, a moment of ownership, a conversation between her and her business. She didn't dread the numbers anymore. She understood them. The profit account? It was now over 400, untouched, growing, like a quiet promise to her future. The owner's pay account? Lisa was paying herself consistently, not extravagantly. Enough to cover life groceries, gas, the occasional Friday takeout. And that alone felt like freedom. For the first time in 2 years, she stopped using credit cards to bridge the gap between bills, because there was no gap. The operating expenses account acted like a boundary. If she didn't have enough to buy that new sign, she waited. If she had a tight week, she adjusted menu specials to stay lean. Lisa wasn't guessing anymore. She had clarity, and with it came control. She started noticing other changes, too. She raised her prices, just a little, not because she had to boot, because she knew her numbers now. She knew exactly what it cost to make each pizza and how much she needed to earn to keep that profit account sacred. And you know what happened? Most customers stayed. A few grumbled, but most understood. And those who left? They weren't the ones keeping her business afloat anyway. She no longer feared losing everyone. Because she was no longer running her shop out of desperation. She was running it with intention. Staff began to notice, too. She smiled more, took lunch breaks, checked in instead of checking out. One of her part-timers, Danny, said, "I don't know what you've been doing, but it's working. You seem lighter." She laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. She was lighter, and not just from reduced stress. She was no longer carrying the weight of uncertainty alone. Then came the day she did something that felt downright radical. She took a day off. Not because she was sick, not because the power went out, but because she had planned for it. She closed the shop on a Monday, her slowest day, and took herself to the lake. Just her, a sandwich, and a paperback mystery novel she'd been meaning to read for 2 years. She sat by the water, phone on silent, and watched ducks pass by. She wasn't thinking about inventory, wasn't worrying about payroll, wasn't panicking about taxes, because all of it, every single number, was already accounted for. The pizza shop didn't vanish while she was gone. The world didn't end. In fact, when she came back Tuesday morning, everything was right where she left it. Only now she was better. The next month, she gave herself a profit bonus, just like the book said. She transferred $150 from her profit account into a separate personal savings account labeled Future Lisa. And she bought something small, but meaningful. A framed print that read, "Your business should serve you, not the other way around." She hung it on the wall above her prep station. Not for customers to see, for her to remember. That small orange book wasn't magic. It didn't give her more customers or erase bad days. But it gave her a system, a new lens, a different rhythm, and the power to stop surviving and start leading. Lisa hadn't changed her product. She hadn't hired a marketing agency. She hadn't found some secret growth hack. She simply decided, I get paid first. I build profit on purpose. I treat this like a real company. And when she made that decision, everything changed. The money, the mindset, the momentum. This wasn't just transformation. It was a rebirth. And she knew she'd never go back. It started small. Lisa wasn't trying to inspire anyone. She wasn't posting motivational quotes or giving business advice. She was just showing up calm, focused, steady. But people noticed. The local mail carrier, who saw her opening the shop every morning at 7:30 sharp, started stopping in for coffee and a slice. The printer down the street asked where she got the new uniforms for her staff-clean polos with her logo embroidered neatly above the chest. And one Saturday, a woman walked in with tired eyes and said, "Hey, I heard you know how to run a business that actually pays you. Can I ask you something?" Her name was Teresa. She owned a small taco truck 3 blocks away. She was Lisa 6 months ago, burned out, in debt, behind on taxes, and questioning whether it was all worth it. Lisa didn't judge. She listened, asked a few questions, then pulled out a blank piece of paper and sketched 5 boxes. "Open 5 accounts," she said softly. "Trust the system. Pay yourself first even. If it's just 10, you'll feel the shift." Teresa nodded slowly, wrote everything down, and a week later texted Lisa. "I opened the accounts. First week ever, I didn't spend all my income. You were right. Thank you." That one moment lit something in Lisa she didn't expect. For months, she'd been rebuilding herself from the inside out, quietly, privately. Now she realized she had something to give. Not a course, not a coaching package, just a story, a method, a map. Word spread in little ripples. A friend of a friend, a cousin of a vendor, a struggling florist, a solo mechanic. They came with questions. Lisa didn't have all the answers, but she had experience. She had her notebook, her bank slips, her spreadsheet. She showed them how she tracked every dollar, how she separated tax money so April didn't feel like an ambush, how she took a profit bonus every quarter even if it was small. And they listened. Because she wasn't preaching. She was living it. Even her team started noticing changes. Danny, her line cook, pulled her aside one day and said, "Hey, I've been thinking about starting my own food stall at the night market. Can you teach me how you manage your money?" Lisa smiled. "Of course," she said. "Let's sit down this weekend." For years, Lisa had been chasing stability. Now, without even trying, she was offering it to others. Her younger sister, who used to worry constantly about Lisa burning out, visited one evening and saw the difference immediately. "You look peaceful," she said. And Lisa laughed. Because peaceful wasn't something she'd felt in a long time. But yeah, she realized it fit now. There was no big TED Talk, no viral moment. Just steady, grounded living. And from that place, she began to lead. Not with authority, but with example. Not with noise, but with clarity. Lisa had always believed business was about more customers, more hours, more effort. But now she knew. Real growth starts with better foundations. And when you get your money right, you free up your energy. To be generous, to teach, to rest, to build something that lasts. Lisa wasn't a guru. She was a pizza shop owner who had once hit rock bottom and decided not to stay there. And because of that quiet decision, other people were starting to rise too. If you had walked into Lisa's shop that November night when she sat alone at the counter with 74 in her account and a broken oven behind her, you might have thought you were watching someone fail. And in a way, she was failing. Not because she wasn't working hard, not because she wasn't talented, but because the system she was using wasn't built to support her. She didn't need to hustle more. She needed a new lens, a better structure. And that lens came in the form of a 1.25 paperback in a dusty library bin profit first. It didn't offer a magic button. It didn't promise overnight success. It gave her something much rarer. Permission. Permission to pay herself first. Permission to protect her energy. Permission to stop treating profit like an afterthought. Because the truth is, profit isn't selfish. It's the oxygen mask. It's the safety net. It's what allows you to build a business that gives rather than one that drains. Lisa didn't get rich. She didn't open 10 new locations or franchise across the state. But she did something braver. She healed her relationship with her business. She turned survival into strategy. She built something that could breathe even when she stepped away. And that's worth more than any marketing milestone or revenue badge. Now, every Friday morning, when she sits at her counter with her coffee, transferring money into the account she built with intention profit, owner's pay, taxes, and operations, she smiles. Not because the numbers are perfect, but because she's no longer afraid of them. And sometimes, late at night when she's locking up, she'll glance at that little framed quote by the kitchen door. Your business should serve you, not the other way around. It reminds her where she started. And, more importantly, it reminds her to never go back. If you're listening to this and you're where Lisa was, feeling invisible, exhausted, quietly drowning under good intentions and bad margins, hear this. You're not broken. You're just doing too much on a system that was never designed to protect you. Start small. Split every dollar. Name where your money goes before it disappears. Take your profit first. Even if it's 5, even if it feels silly, because what you're really doing is proving to yourself that you matter inside your own business. And when you believe that, everything else follows. This was Lisa's business story, but it could be yours too. All it takes is one decision, one small change, one act of ownership that says, from today forward, I build this differently. So go. Open the accounts. Grab the notebook. Draw the 5 boxes. Start paying yourself. Start seeing clearly. You don't need permission. You just need to begin. And one day soon, like Lisa, you'll look back and realize you didn't just fix your business. You reclaimed your life.